Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of
Not Fighting,
the only podcast on the web that is focused on lots of things,
whatever we want.
Sports. That's hosted by a husband and wife couple that are black belts in Jiu Jitsu and also located in Carmel Valley, San Diego.
And owners of Shiba Inus.
I think that we've cornered that enough to where there's no way some people are like, oh no, these people had a podcast way before you guys did. If you're not watching our podcast on YouTube, I know that it's not like we are throwing stats or graphics up on the screen, but you're missing out if you didn't just see the face that Jenna made.
Well, you made a comment, and the voice that you use was how little kids talk trash to each other. So that's what I did, the little kid motion.
Whatever, Marvin. Their sweatpants are supposed to be oversized fit.
I don't know what that
I got
means.
made fun of when I was a kid for wearing sweatpants because I knew that
you were a husky little boy.
No. She's joking around with me because my mom used to always threaten me. I guess threaten me or bully me. I don't know. My mom was passive aggressive to me and would basically say, "Oh, Tyler, you're gonna have to start wearing husky jeans." And I'd be like, "I don't know what to do about that. You're the one that makes all my food."
It's because you threw all of your broccoli down the vents.
Well, no, I didn't. I never threw broccoli down the vents. What I did is I would unwrap. Food. Yeah, usually wrappers mainly, candy wrappers and bubble gum. They went down the vents. And then my sister learned. She was like, "Oh, that's where we put stuff on." I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes when you don't want to get up,
Yeah. Terrible child. This is why we don't have children. Honestly, I'm afraid of what I'm going to have to deal with at some point in my life.
That kid is going to be making us too rich. But yeah, we are back with another episode of the podcast. And this time we've got a little bit of news. I know it's something that we've been talking about for a while. And so listen to the podcast. It won't be some massive surprise, but Jenna has some news.
Yeah, well, I'm officially signed with LFA for to make my MMA debut. It will be my MMA debut / professional MMA debut all at once. Ooh, scary.
Double debut.
But I'm excited about that. I'm really excited, and I'm excited to be starting out this journey with LFA. So hopefully we have fight news, an actual date and fight announced soon. I'm hoping no later than April to be making that debut, but we'll see what happens. I'm kind of just stay ready, training as much as I can, but that's kind of how I do for jiu-jitsu too. How I do. That's but that's with jiu-jitsu and everything. I know there's not really the off season. We've talked about that. There's not an off season. So you're kind of always perpetually training, and the intensity level / stress focus level changes depending on if you're preparing for a tournament or not. So I think that's just kind of how it is. And for me, I'm still learning a lot of things and trying to improve. So especially with the striking, cause that's, new to me. So those are things that I'm training all the time anyway. So, so I'll be ready for whenever they want to put me in there.
Yeah. They've said, we're trying to get something in March or April, and that's sort of the target sooner rather than later, hopefully.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I find really interesting in general about this is what you were just talking about. We talked about this on I think an early episode of our podcast, but in MMA, you kind of have this, there's this ritual, I guess, for lack of a better term, of having a camp.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's merit in having either an off season or a time whenever you're in recovery. I don't think that there's a lot of that in jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I see is a flaw in MMA sometimes is you'll have people that basically stunt their growth by once they basically get kind of proficient at fighting, meaning decent at most things.
I don't even know that it's necessarily people who are proficient at fighting, because I see this happen all the time where people, if they're in a fight camp, they're training hard, and if they're not, they don't train at all.
Yeah,
really.
They might not train at all.
Yeah.
And if they do,
or just like sporadically.
Yeah, it's like they like the average person working out, it's like like maybe 2 or 3 days a week, but
and for sure you should give your body the time to rest and recover, but like in the off season, the time where it's like you're not in camp, that's the time to like be improving skills, in my opinion, and like adding things to your game, because you don't really want to add anything new in fight camp, except for maybe specific things. It's like game plan oriented, right? Yeah,
and you see that in like the NFL is probably a really good comparison for something like this, because during a football season, your body gets so destroyed. You think about playing all those games, people hitting you and stuff like that. That's not the time that you're going to get faster, stronger. Like, you're not going to get more proficient at your technique. The off season, usually after the NFL season ends, players like really take some downtime and try to heal, get whatever surgeries they need to get. I think the average NFL athlete gets like 8 surgeries or something like that
in their career.
In their NFL career, which is crazy because the average NFL career is 2.5 years. So it's like,
oh dang,
more
than one surgery per year.
You're looking at least 2 to 3 surgeries if you're on the lucky end.
That's insane.
Yeah, but so you've got this for MMA athletes where you could potentially, do these camps, and that's whenever you focus on everything. But if you compare it to something like the NFL, you've got athletes that are, right around the combine usually, the idea of like combine training or whatever. It's like they would run 40 times, they'd work on bench press, because that's the time to really focus on getting bigger, stronger, faster, like fix that throwing technique, fix that, like, the blocking footwork or whatever it is that athletes focus on. But yeah, I think that's something that often is missed in MMA, Yeah. Yeah. And it's it's overly prevalent in Jiu Jitsu, if that makes sense.
What do you mean overly prevalent?
Meaning like there's no off season. There's no time whenever you're necessarily improving versus like getting ready for a competition. I mean, there are instances where that happens, but I think it's almost more by happenstance and opportunity.
I think people just are like addicted to training. Yeah. Like it's like for me, and we've talked about this, but it's like I feel like I get like addicted to sweating. That's the thing that I feel like I need to do, because if you do jiu-jitsu, like if you're training, it's especially like you have a gi on or whatever, it's like every session you're just going to be like drenched in sweat, like after just sparring, even if you're just going for fun, it's like you get this really good sweat out, you feel good, all the endorphins, like everything is like great. And then there's not really like a lot of other things that make me sweat, like just training does. Yeah. And so I think you just kind of get addicted to that feeling. It was like, oh, I just want to sweat today. And like, so let's just go train. And then maybe I need to be resting, but I really want to sweat, so I'm going to train.
It's weird that you mentioned that, because there is something that is, I think, addictive about that. And it's weird to me that it doesn't necessarily apply to everything. But there are certain things, like I think about, the first thing that came to my mind was CrossFit, that like people are like all about it, get kind of like in like overly into it right away.
Culty. Yeah. If you will.
But stuff that's really high intensity in terms of exercise, me, I moonlight as a medical researcher, but there's this like release of norepinephrine, and like people always talk like the runner's high or whatever. Yeah. It's like, that's because, most people are out of shape, and when they run, they're like, it's high intent. It's intense for them, I guess.
Yeah. Even if they're just going at a trot. Runners.
But I love to run, by the way. But yes. When I get done running, I don't feel like how I feel when I get done doing jiu-jitsu, where sometimes you're physically exhausted, but you're like on this high of like, I love being around people. I love everything because I just got done training, and it's like that intensity triggers these like neurotransmitters that your body is like trying to let you know, like, hey, you should do more of this. We need to be stronger in case like Wildcats try to bite our feet off.
Wildcats?
Yeah. You know what's funny? It's like how many high schools are named the Wildcats, and that's like just a generic term. Like, if somebody was to say, like, I saw a wildcat outside.
Is a wildcat like a specific type of cat? It's just like a jaguar or like a mountain lion or like
all of the bobcat.
Bobcat.
Which like you think about a panther in the jungle and a bobcat in Missouri, which is where my reference for bobcats comes from. But like it's weird that they're both like considered like wildcats, because it's like they're very, very
Well, you have your house cat and you have your wildcat, and so we could be talking about lions.
But that's what's weird about it, is like no one uses that as like a term to describe like the cat that they saw. Like, oh man, don't go outside right now, I saw a wild cat out there. And you're like, oh, I don't know.
Like, are you talking about a feral cat? It's a street cat.
Oh man, that's just a street cat. No, I think it's weird because it's like the variance there. I don't know, you just drive me crazy. My high school, obviously,
they were Wildcats.
Yeah, we were the Wildcats, like 95%.
Like Kansas State, is that what it is?
Yeah, we ripped everything off of Kansas State. We did have like somebody that was kind of creative at one point that like changed their logo so that there was an M in so the mouth was a C, and it's like, oh, Montgomery County. We're the most generic. I lived in Montgomery County, and we were the Wildcats.
Yeah.
There's like a Montgomery County in like most states.
Maybe 2.
No. Like
no, 2 in every state is what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe 2. I'm from Montgomery South. We're the South Wildcats. I feel like that's something that would happen too. Like mascots and like team names are so benign, where it's like you'd be like the Montgomery County South Wildcats, and they're like, well, what's Montgomery County North? And be like,
there's not one. We're just in the South.
East Wildcats.
Well, no, okay. It's like, so we're just like random things right now. But one of my friends, her mascot was the pretzels.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, the pretzels. That is a mascot that exists in, I believe, Illinois.
Well, for now, until they get canceled,
right?
Until the indigenous pretzel people come back and they're like, stop it,
Snyder's. It's like, nope.
The Germans.
You can't use the pretzels.
Like now we're gonna get like in Germany they're gonna be like, don't listen to that.
I'm
not gonna try to do a German accent. I'm not gonna try to do it.
Just gonna stop you right there. And anyway, yes,
we're gonna get canceled in Germany.
Mascots, weird.
Yeah, we should have a mascot for like the podcast.
It would be a Shiba.
Yeah, it would be a Shiba.
Doge.
Yeah. The most Doge.
That face.
That's one of the things.
I can't fat face here.
I remember when that meme came out, I was like, I think that might be a Shiba. And then it became like a thing. And I just was like, I hate all these people trying to think Shibas are cool. They're not cool.
They're not?
Well, I mean, like.
You just don't want it to be mainstream.
No, because I think people think it's cool.
Because you're a hipster.
I am kind of low-key a hipster in a lot of ways. Yeah. But, like, I'm a self-hating
in a nerdy way.
Yeah. Like, in not a cool way.
Yep.
Speaking of things not in a cool way, I think we'd be remiss.
Slap heard around the world.
Yes, I was going to say, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the slap heard around the world, which was...
double slap.
A double slap. And I think that's the thing that people sleep on here, is that was... 2 slaps that Gordon Ryan delivered to Andre Galvao. And to me, what is interesting about this, which if you don't know what we're talking about, you probably
live
don't
under a rock?
Well, you don't follow any jiu-jitsu accounts on Instagram.
Yes.
And if you're like an MMA fan, or you're just like, oh, Tyler's my son, so I'm listening to this podcast.
Shout out to mom.
Gordon Ryan is... one of the guys at the top of the no-gi jiu-jitsu game right now. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of... I won't go into describing it too much more than that. But, yeah, just one of the top guys. And he's gotten a lot of attention. He's very, very popular.
Yes.
And one of the most accomplished, by far, pro no-gi grapplers in jiu-jitsu is Andre Galvao. Mm-hmm. Multi-time gi world champion and no-gi world champion, and
one of the best to do it, for sure.
People have wanted to see a showdown between them for a long time, and it's been hyped recently. And then at an event,
we talked about it. Like, we talked about how Andre was like, "Oh, I'm gonna only fight for $1 million."
Yeah,
and blah 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 on the last one. But
so you're like, cool, same guy, caught up.
Yes, recently at a Who's Number One event hosted by Flow Grappling, Andre was coaching students there.
Correct.
Gordon was competing. So it all started with Gordon walking by. Did he try and shake Galvao's hand after he fought?
Yeah, so the word on the street.
Yes.
The word on the street is that Gordon, after he won his match against Roberto Jimenez, who's a really good, talented young grappler. But Gordon is probably like a little bit of a tall task for him at this point. Gordon wins the match.
Also bigger.
Yeah, also bigger. And so Gordon wins the match. It was supposed to be his little brother, actually, that fought Roberto at first. So Gordon steps off, and as he's leaving, he walks by Andre, and he goes to like shake his hand, and the word on the street is that Andre gives him the bird, flips him off.
Yeah, which there's a video of it. You can see it happen.
Cool.
Yeah,
so I'm not like
there's a photo. I saw a photo.
Not conjecture then.
Yeah.
And so, like they have words or whatever, and then at some point thereafter, I'm not sure of the timelines.
Yeah, I don't know when it happened, but it was like backstage, like Gordon is going to get interviewed after he fought. Andre's there. They're exchanging words. Andre, it looks
pleasantries.
Like yes, it looks like Andre shoves him, and Gordon immediately is like, pop, smacks him,
and it's loud,
and it's very, very loud. And then Andre kind of like backs away, doesn't do anything, no retaliation, just like still jawing at this point. And then whoever was filming didn't put the camera on them, still didn't follow them, and then you hear in the background another slap. Very loud, very loud. So, and then they go back, I don't know, then there's like more just trash talk about like, oh, you're so disrespectful, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I'm trying to do an interview, blah, blah, blah. Just like a lot of like, Yeah. You're not missing it.
No one was talking about like data science here.
No. It was just like a lot of macho, like, posturing.
Yeah. The words that were spoken, if transcribed, are at a third grade reading level for sure.
Maybe first.
But that's just how, like, to me, how stupid this is. But,
yes. And it's like, well, it's funny because it's like we have to talk about it because it's like the only interesting thing that's happening in jiu-jitsu right now. But it's also really sad and annoying.
Well, sad in jiu-jitsu that's the only thing interesting happening right now. And I think it's because this matchup, since Eddie Bravo Hoyler 2, is probably one of the most anticipated grappling matches. Like, and I think that's one of the things that jiu-jitsu really lacks is like these, like, because everybody fights each other in a tournament all the time, or like you've kind of seen that before. There's not a lot of interest in watching some matchups unless it's like somebody that's retired or like, and it's like it kind of loses,
or just like luster. Different weight classes or something like that.
Yeah, something that's sort of bizarre. And this is one that actually makes sense. Andre could retire right now, and I don't think people would say like it's an early retirement.
Yeah, no.
Because it's not that he's old.
But at this point, if he retires and he doesn't fight Gordon, everyone's just going to say like he was afraid. And I feel like when you let a man slap you in the face and you don't do anything about it, it's some might say, oh, he was taking the high road. No. It seemed like
the high road didn't want push in the first place.
Yeah, you initiated a fight and then didn't follow through with that. So that's kind of just like the
high road would have been to shake his hand when he walked off.
Shake his hand and then move on.
Yeah, and just be like, we're gonna talk our trash online, but you know what?
Yeah,
in real life
we can be cordial.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. And so to then flip somebody off and then go up and then like.
Be John them. And I think it's like, was he thinking that Gordon was just all talk and he wasn't going to do anything? So he pushes him, just mean like trying to prove a point of like, you're just all talk, and then like surprised by the fact that, he's not. Like he's ready to throw down.
So I cannot give you the mind of Andre Galvao. He's a family man. Like I would say, like
he's well respected, and like by all accounts from his students and people I've talked to, like it's like I don't hear anybody talking anything bad about him as like a human being.
His moral character is like, in good standing. And so it's a little bit out of character then for him to go up and like push him, give this guy the bird. So I think at this point you have to assume, okay, benefit of the doubt, like Gordon's really getting under his skin. It's
like he's just getting caught up in this drama.
Playful. It's like it's sort of like cutting deep.
Yeah.
And so at that point, like you do go up and you shove him, and so Gordon slaps him in the face. and
in front of his wife,
in front of everybody.
I mean,
right?
yeah, I don't know who all was there. I just assume.
I mean, I won't go into detail here, but like in Brazilian culture is a romantic culture, so I feel like things that are like on display that everybody see, like everything is it's more emotional, I would say, than like you would see from like I don't know, like a Russian society that's very stoic or something. Yeah. And because of that, I think it's like even particularly more like pronounced that he got slapped. Now, the craziest part about that is that...
Which, can I say, just like sidebar, the fact that he was like open hand slapped him makes me so much happier than if he would have punched him. And I don't know why. Because there's just something that's like so much more disrespectful to slap a man in his face than to punch him.
I will throw this out there, and this is something
because like I'm a fan of the Stockton slap, so
I am too. I am.
Just saying.
Now, here's something that like this is something that someone like Half Gracie could learn from.
Yeah,
and that is like
had he just open hand slapped the guy, he wouldn't have dropped him.
Well, you don't leave a mark, and also,
it'll be red for a little bit, like, but it's
Gordon
not going to bruise.
There's video evidence, but it was dark and choppy. I mean, like, Gordon played his hand pretty well. It was pretty street smart.
Yeah, it was
to go
dark.
With the slap in the dark.
Yeah, it's real smart.
We should title that this episode. Just note
slap in the dark.
But yeah, I think that's the most amazing part to me is that thereafter that there was a second slap.
Yes, because we were talking about this earlier. It's like, okay, you can say, I'm going to not engage this person. They slap me. I'm just not going to engage this person. But I'm also like aware that they're ready to throw down. So like I can back away, talk, whatever. But you weren't prepared for a second slap. Like as a jiu-jitsu practitioner where it's like, this is supposed to be self-defense. You should know what, like by body posture and things like that maybe this person's going to try and hit you and just like Andre's not like, it's not like he didn't fight MMA.
Yeah.
He fought MMA. Like, so it's not like
he's 7-1, 8-1. His only loss was Tyron Woodley, who was the UFC champ for a long time. Yeah.
So it's just like, you know how to compete in combat sports and you're going to let a man slap you in the face. And it's just like bizarre to me. But all that being said, I just like, it's like kind of disappointing that this is what's happening in jiu-jitsu right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I'm gonna get there because I'm not done with this shit.
Okay.
So to me,
hold on, like you have one of my hairs on your face.
Oh yeah, that happens.
Yeah,
okay,
I got it.
We're talking about earlier. There was an ice cube that I got out.
We don't need to talk about this.
There was an ice cube. And I was like, oh, there's a hair on it. And I realized the hair was actually in the ice. It got frozen in there.
Don't drink or eat any ice from our house.
Yeah. Well, we're in debate right now of whether or not it was an eyebrow, because it definitely wasn't a beard hair, because there's no way, because it was dark.
No, it was Toast's hair. It was a dog hair.
It was probably a dog's hair.
Anyhow.
She's a sweetie. No, but like if you're defending Andre and like as this is playing out, and you're like, well, listen, self-defense aside, like, which 100%, like, I mean, when you do jiu-jitsu your whole life, like, you have to be teaching people, like, one of the things you teach is, like, if somebody's, like, gets up within striking distance, like, have your hands up just so
your
you
hands
can,
are up, like
talk
ready
with your
to
hands. Be Italian, whatever.
Just be ready to protect your face from
Mamma mia. Why do you keep saying that? Mamma mia, step back. But if you're like, Andre's a good man, like, he got slapped in the face and he just didn't want it to escalate, he didn't want it to get ugly, whatever, fair enough. But it then did get ugly and then got slapped again.
Yes.
And it's like, I was telling you earlier, and this is just personal, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that would say this, but I know this is true. It's like, under no circumstances am I in that predicament where I shove somebody and then get slapped. I'm like, well, I'm surprised I got slapped. Yes. But like, I can say with like undoubtable certainty that I don't get slapped twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I might, but I'll be unconscious.
Also, just, speaking from like a standpoint of our, pastor does jiu-jitsu too. And we talked about it with him this morning. And he said he would also retaliate if a man slapped him. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, we weren't in the wrong.
I feel like we definitely just put Pastor Matt on blast. You go to that church where the guy talks about like he thinks you should slap people or something? Yep, that's the one.
Yep.
Slappy Matt? That's the guy.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that it's sad that this is like when you think about like jiu-jitsu and like, you know, people wanting it to be more popular and more mainstream or whatever, which who knows if, you know, to what degree that'll ever happen.
Yeah.
This is the most exciting thing, you know?
I know. And I think that's like what sucks is like there were a lot of good matches and events that happened. Like I think it was really cool to see Craig Jones heel hook Ronaldo. Like that's like an exciting like that. Not like I'm excited for that like whatever, but it's a cool match. Like and
Ronaldo's win over Roberto, I think, is particularly intriguing because Gordon called the shot, said he was going to armbar him from out before the match even started.
Yeah, and so it's just there's a lot of things, and then Natieli and Gabby Garcia. It's like you know Natieli beat her gi and no gi, and it's like the first woman to have a win over her in both like gi and no gi matches, and it's like there's so many things that were like really exciting, and I feel like you're getting overshadowed. So the sport itself is getting overshadowed by this like childish like middle school type of like drama, you know. And I feel like as grown men you've let this like internet trash talk like take over your like real life. And I think that's like something we were talking about, like the culture like that we're in today, where it's like the internet is real life, like is just creating these.
How I describe Gen Z. Correct?
Yes. But like it's like this thing where it's like, you know, we have this like the cycle of news is like very like short. And like we have this like short-term memory on things, but like if it happened online, then that's what like is real and true. And so when people are using all this like these mediums to trash talk and like all that, like we're just say whatever they want because there's no repercussions of it. Then you go in real life and you think like, oh, I can still talk trash to this person's face and I can shove this person and there's not going to be repercussions for it. It's like, no, that's not how the real world works. Like that's not reality.
Yeah. And there's a larger thing, and this is something that I've thought about recently because I go back to like psychology theory and stuff like that I like.
Nerd.
Yeah, nerd. But yeah, there's, you know, this idea that the world, you've heard people say that are in like theater or whatever, like the world is a stage and everybody's an actor. Like there's like theories in psychology that's part of it. It's like when you're with your parents, you're acting the role of a son, you know, or a daughter. And whenever you're with, you know, your kids, you're acting the role of a mom or dad. And like these are the things that you know, and these are the like roles that you're playing. Online, I think that everything there shifts where it's not that you're even role playing, you're storytelling. And I think that that's the piece of this that makes it really hard. Like I gave the example to you earlier when we were talking about this, that, you know, the Bitcoin price had been at a record high and it dropped really hard, you know, like midweek. And the narrative across all financial sites was like Bitcoin crashed.
Yeah.
And multiple outlets reported that. But if you look at it, you go back 10 days, and 10 days ago, Bitcoin had reached its all-time in history high.
Yeah.
So it's like it crashed to
what it crashed to would have been its high 10 days ago.
Yeah. And I think that's the so
it's not like it just dropped to the bottom. It just dropped a little bit.
Yeah, it just reduced.
Yeah.
And the piece of that I think is interesting is that I think we can all get really caught up in the story of like what is happening right now, and that becomes a reality. And the nature of that is that in real life, many things don't change, or many things aren't any different than they were before. But because of you know, like a narrative or story shifting, like people feel the need to like lash out and flip somebody off and push them or whatever, you know. But I do worry about like that from the standpoint in jiu-jitsu of like, too many of these types of narratives, really like this becoming like what jiu-jitsu is. It's like, where's the next feud? I think Flow feeds that really badly. But even aside from that, it's like it's on
Because
jiu-jitsu,
like
I think, to be more interesting.
Yeah, I think it's like, because it's like, what's gonna get like it's like you're trying to make money off of all these things, these news outlets, these media outlets. It's like at the bottom, like at the end of the day, it's all about like making money. So it's like, what's gonna get clicks, views, like likes, things like that. And so sensationalized news is the things that are, so you make these stories where it's like you say something crashes and it's like, well, it didn't really, but like that is more interesting than saying like it dropped a little bit today, or like, covering like these dramas. And so then the athletes in jiu-jitsu are starting to feed off that too, because you realize like, how do I get attention in the sport? And it's like, you've seen all these people throughout the years who have like been like the trash talkers, like a Conor McGregor or like a Colby Covington, and
then
it's
you
like
see everybody
they play these roles, and then people mimic that, and it's like it's very obvious when that's not like you're not good at it or you're not authentic. And I feel like that's what's happening in jiu-jitsu right now. Where it's like Gordon is really good at trash talking and getting under people's skin, but then
he's also good at like social media,
and he can back it up too. It's like, and not saying that the other people he's talking trash to can't, but they're just not as good as the trash talk. And it's like, oh, it's kind of cringy. It's like, no, you're better than that. Like, come on, just be better than that.
The skill of that is so different than it is in real life. So like a Conor McGregor, like how quick-witted he is. That's something that's very unique. Like Gordon doesn't have that, but he is good at social media where you have time to like kind of think about it and you're like, clever. And I think that is such a unique skill in this time because it does get you that attention. Now, the thing that I don't like is having that fed, because we've seen this in, everyday life. If you go back 6-7 years ago, the industry that I know all too well is like, clickbait. This, you used to go on Facebook, you'll never believe what she did next, and reality is those things got clicked on so much.
Or that one, the one that, didn't they ban it, where it was like a picture, like what's that thing where you're afraid of like holes? Like and it was like some kind of plant pod, like
it's
seed thing.
It's like a sunflower seed pod or something like that. But and
they use that to be like make people click on stuff. Like
there's a certain portion of people that pod resembles like these holes, that like it's this fear of holes, but it resembles like if you go on
like your skin.
Do not do this, because if you're one of these people, it will bother you. Like it really will. Like if you Google like fear of holes and then skin and then click images, you're gonna see some stuff that might just drive you insane.
It's like people's ultimate fear that like there's gonna be like parasites and bugs like crawling out of their skin, that's where buried into their skin.
It's a biological thing that they think is like embedded about like a fear of parasites or something like that. Anyways, so like all those things get clicks, they get attention, right? But it's like so bottom of the barrel. Like pornography would get tons of attention, And I think that, like you look at outlets, and we as a people decided like there's a big difference between like BuzzFeed, like you'll never believe what she did next, and like I won't even name an outlet, but just like real news, right? Yeah. And even now,
I don't even think there's real news anymore, though.
But you divide this line between the types of content you see as news and the types of content you see as like entertainment,
Yeah, yeah.
And even now, like,
but I feel like that line is so blurred now.
It is, but my point is like even that, like purists would say, the news that's on the news now is still very populist and like going for clicks, but there is still this like altruistic idea of like good hard-hitting journalism, but the idea is there is like, oh well, you have to pay for that because it doesn't get enough general attention. And so what I'm concerned about though is that even though there's a place for this, I think when it's genuine, like if two guys have beef, like I want to see it, But when things start being like artificially manufactured, which the thing between Gordon and Galvao, I feel like there's a certain portion of it that's been agged on and almost like artificially like turned into something that it really wasn't before.
Because I think that if it hadn't been done that way, like if there wasn't all this like weird drama and like things that have been like you said, like agged on and like pushed, I think the whole Galvao fighting Gordon in ADCC would just be another super fight at ADCC.
Or Galvao would have retired.
Or he would retire. But now it's like this thing, and it's causing attention, and it's been made this thing. And smartly by Gordon, like I think that was like, you know, kind of like, I mean, it was smart on him to do that. But like,
we talked about that last week.
Yeah, but I just don't think it's like, I just feel like knowing things about Galvao, I won't pretend to say like I know him, like, but I'm saying like from what I've heard, I just wish that he would have handled things differently, or I
feel like he's put himself into a bad position,
like a lose-lose situation.
Have to be in, and he got like sort of. Gordon like lured him into a really bad spot, like, and it's gotten worse and worse, and now he's at a point to where. But
it's not just him; it's him and his students. You know, it's like this whole thing where now there's this narrative of like the Danaher like Death Squad versus Atos, and there's like it's not like real.
Yeah, it's not a real thing.
Yeah,
it's not like those are the two.
Like those are the only two teams, and like that's what if you were to like just only get your news from Flow Grappling or like from Flow Grappling, you would think those are the only two teams that exist in jiu-jitsu at this point.
Yeah. It's true. And if you really look at the top and you can be like, well, they're very relevant teams in Nogi Jiu-Jitsu, and you're like, fair enough. But like still, if you take the entirety of both of those teams, top people, or just anybody that's like recognizably good, it's still like less than 10 to 20% of the best Nogi grapplers on the planet. So it's like still the minority of, you know, the best in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that to me, that's the bummer in jiu-jitsu, but it's partially why I'm like really excited to be, you know, like going along this journey, watching you get ready for your first MMA fight. MMA has its own flaws, but Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I think like there's still a long ways to go in terms of it developing more and more as both a sport and then like whatever we want it to be in terms of being a martial art moving forward. I worry about a split at some point, like
the purists versus like the sport jiu-jitsu, like a self-defense versus sport, which is something that's always discussed, and we've talked about that too. Well, but like, I don't know.
Frequent podcast guest Nick Schrock and myself talked about this yesterday about how he had observed that he felt like in certain classes you would see guys basically like making completely different mistakes, and some of it is based on the fact that, you know, guys are learning like submission only style grappling, and then other people are learning like very basic fundamental gi jiu-jitsu, and the decisions that those people make when they grapple are completely different, and it's not a style thing, it's a concepts thing, you know.
Yeah. I think it's something that you see across the board though, like in from gym to gym, right? Like the styles that are being taught. Like I think, you know, where we train at Alliance, you know, I feel like we have a very good blend of all of like styles. It's not just self-defense based. It's not just sport jiu-jitsu. It's like not grappling. It's Wing like Chun. Yeah. Just a little bit of Wing Chun.
Yeah, you gotta have a little bit.
But, you know, and it's also the thing is we have a big Muay Thai program at our academy too. So you have like a striking aspect to some of those people like are training in both like disciplines, and so it's pretty balanced. And I also think that like leadership is pretty level-headed and like reasonable on how they approach things.
Johnny twice.
Nobody.
I'm gonna go on record right now.
No, because the first time he would have been whoever slapped him would have been jumped by every single one of us there with him.
Also, Johnny strikes me. Johnny's a very streetwise guy. First of all, no one's slapping him because everywhere he goes, he becomes like the mayor of that place.
Yes,
he's everybody's best friend.
Yes, this is very true.
So no one shoves him. But if someone does, man, good luck getting the jump on a slap with Johnny. I feel like.
Yeah. Who was I talking about? Maybe I was telling you. I was like, can you imagine if JJ was there with Johnny and somebody tried to slap Johnny and Jay was there?
I mean, you'd have to wonder where Jay got a sword from. We're inside baseball here at this point, but yeah.
Sorry, that was just funny.
I do think that it's an evolution of a lot of different things, but it's one of the things that makes what we talk about, like on the show, really fun. Is that there is always something kind of going on and some kind of weird quirk.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what the future holds for everything. But most excited about your future in MMA. And
as am I.
Obvi. And so we should have some fight announcements here soon. And
I really hope so.
And then stay tuned for we'll have some other really cool announcements and stuff like that we're working on, that hopefully if you're listening to the show, you like it. Hopefully you've left a review or something like that, or thumbs up it on YouTube. Those things are sort of helpful. So it's like kind of like throwing a tip our way. So if you got like an extra couple minutes on your phone, standing in line or whatever, like leave a podcast review, or,
simply like
send the podcast to everybody you're in your, like phone inbox. Contact list or whatever.
Yeah, all those things. We'd appreciate it.
But if nothing else, we appreciate you listening and checking out the podcast. I'm Tyler Bishop. That's Jena Bishop. That one.
This one.
The one that I'm pointing at.
Yep. The woman's voice.
A second plug for our YouTube channel, so you can see where we're pointing. It's painfully obvious in audio as well. But yeah, thanks for watching another episode of
Not Fighting.